Hello, welcome to The Warrior's Way. My name is Arno Ilgner. The lesson today comes from Brene Brown's blog. 3 takeaways from a book that she read called Fearless. It's from author Dr. Pippa Grange. And Brene's got 3 takeaways from it. And so what I'd like to do is read what she says about each of those takeaways and then frame it in the context of the Warrior's Way, like how we would interpret that. Okay, so the first one is, Brene says, instead of performing at the thing in front of us, like our job, our life, or our role as a parent, we humans have become performative. Well, there's an interesting word, performative. But she explains that by saying, that was hard to swallow for me, thinking about how our ever commoditized, ever on lives, each and every moment of our days has been turned into an opportunity to perform. So much so that we don't even know anymore how to show up with our masks off and our authentic selves. So when I start reflecting on this, as I get older, I'm really not interested in this idea of performing anymore, at least in certain contexts. I'm more interested in being, right? Being and showing up authentically of who I am, okay? So I think this is not, I'm not unique in this, where we all have this tendency through our lives to create sort of an ego identity, wanting to be somebody. Okay, so for me, I kind of sought that through climbing and being a mental training coach. So what I'm more interested in now is not having to perform to uphold those images, but rather just showing up authentically for the experience that I have, either myself engaging in the world around me or with the people I interact with. So what about you? Has your life become performative? Well, the second point that Brene writes about, let me read it here. She says, win deep, not shallow. Okay. She says, Grange describes winning shallow as a win that comes when we're winning to avoid not being good enough, winning to beat the other guy, winning to be seen as good enough. It's winning born of comparison and scarcity and self-doubt. Winning deep, on the other hand, is where you actually can feel the richness of your journey. You're attached to the joy of the struggle, and you are attached to the mess. And it is generally done for reasons outside of yourself and the fulfillment of our egoic needs. It's done more from a soul level. So here we can see how this is tied to the first point. If I'm working on building this ego mask, I'm tying my ego identity to outcomes that I'm creating. I'm constantly performing to prove to myself that I'm good enough and worthwhile to kind of exist. So I think from mental training perspective, this is a really important area, like our whole sense of worthiness. And I think we can move to a point where we can make it a non-issue. Okay, we just don't have to constantly prove to ourselves that we have a right to exist. So in other words, I think we can say, I exist, therefore I am. Like, my existence is enough proof that I'm worthwhile to be here. I don't have to keep proving it. So what about you? Are you constantly proving that you have a right to exist? Well, the third point that Brown says is, if you can't surrender, you can't allow the mystery. And if you can't allow any mystery, you can't open the door to soul. And she goes on to say, one of the recurring points in Dr. Grange's work is the results are just an outcome, but one you can't really control. Sure, there's loads you can do on the way up, as Grange says, but then you have to let go. And it's hard to do, especially when you've tied your self-worth to outcomes. Okay. So, what do you think you can control? You know, we can think, well, you know, I could control other people a little bit. Well, maybe for a while. If you're in a position of power, maybe you can control other people and to what they do until you turn your back and you don't see them anymore and they do what they want to do. So it's not very much control. You have to constantly be there. You may say, okay, I can control myself. Well, you can control your thoughts, you can control choices that you make, you can control actions that you take. But really, if you really examine it, like controlling your thoughts, you'll find that you really can't, okay, or not very much. But what you can control that underlies thinking, that underlies actions you take with your body, that underlies decision making is attention. Okay, and so this is one of the really cool aspects of mental training and this process of getting down to the root, into digging into the mystery is like, if you come from the perspective that all you really can control is your attention, then you're truly bringing your control internally, you know, creating that really authentic internal locus of control. So, do you believe that you can control more than your attention? You should just examine your thoughts and see if that is true. So at the end of her blog, Brown says she wants to leave us with one particular point, and that is, it's scary to talk about soul or love or in our hyper-rational, data-driven world, but I'm convinced these are the missing pieces of our potential. And in fighting fear, this is the only genuine way to talk about change and becoming fearless. So, you know, we are in this data-driven, really fast world, kind of as hamster wheel of busyness. And technology, like this phone here, has really just exacerbated that, made that thing spin even faster. So, I think what's going on in society lately, at least I've been hearing about it and seeing this, is people are pushing back against that. You know, they're just sick of having lives that are so busy. And what they're doing is they're either shutting down their social media or they're limiting the amount of time they spend on it, or what sites that they choose to investigate and interact with. They're tired of, because of technology, that work is permeating all of their personal lives, you know, so that they're in contact too much. So we can push back against that, you know, and carve out time so we're not so busy, so we can interact in the experiences that we have in each day. You know, and we can do that through our senses. Like, you can look outside, you can experience I can see, you know, the change of the colors as the leaves are turning. I can tune into what I hear. Like, what do you hear right now? Sort of, unfortunately, it's just traffic noise. But a little while ago, there were a lot of birds that were flying through the area. There's a gentle breeze blowing right now. I can feel that on my skin, or the warm sun of a fall day. This is a way to dig deeper into the mystery and experience how the world is impacting my body, mind in this moment. So, for a practice tip, I think we can find a balance between performance and having this less busy life. You know, we can have deep performance, you might say. I think what happens with just a performance-oriented mindset is our mind or our attention tends to get ahead of our body that's in the present moment experience. In other words, we start rushing with our attention. So as a practice tip, you just simply notice when that's happening and redirect your attention to the current task, like what I did just a moment ago, engaging my senses in what I can see, hear, and feel. So if you can do that, then you're digging deeper into the mystery and finding that richness of the experience that Brene is talking about. So that's the lesson this week. You can go to warriorsway.com and get all of the links. And if you're interested in this kind of training, check out our training calendar. We'd be happy to work with you with this material and share it with you. Enjoy your lesson.